You've been waiting for Mavuika. I've been waiting for Mavuika. Everyone's been waiting for Mavuika. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you want to see some sneak peeks on Mavuika buffs and nerfs, all that stuff, I already made that video on that. We're not doing a lot of editing in this one. We even actually have like a weapon guide video out as well. Go check that one out. But what I'm going to be doing, you might think about this as a little bit of a rant video, but this is more of a question answering video because the number one question I've gotten on this content, as far as Mavuika is related, every time we talk about it on stream or in YouTube videos, is I already have all of the different pyro DPS. That's all they are. We're all on-field pyro DPS characters, right? Arlecchino, Hu Tao, everyone but Xiangling is an on-field pyro DPS character. Is she going to be good? I like her as a character. In my little rant, I don't know, I'm trying to stay away from being ranty with Mavuika, as Mavuika has been designed in a way. Also, real quick, side tangent. If this is all you want to know, proper team for Mavuika versus proper team for Arlecchino now, based on everything I've seen and the numbers I've crunched, they're about the same depending on what you're fighting, right? Mavuika is going to be in a melt / vaporize team, whereas Arlecchino is going to be doing that mono pyro. There's a caveat to that because one of those characters has room to grow exponentially throughout all the different releases of different characters out there, and another one really does not. And the other one that really does not, in my opinion, is Mavuika. Now, can she get buffed up by future characters? Sure, potentially, but she's kind of married to a certain subsect of characters that we'll see in just one region, which is the region we're in right now, which is Notlan. Now, why is this? Now, if you go to her elemental burst, as far as an on-field DPS Mavuika goes, which is what a lot of people are interested in, the on-field DPS, why is she married to a certain subsect of characters from the Notlan region? This is from her elemental burst. Now, her elemental burst does not use elemental burst gauge energy like everyone else in Genshin Impact does. No, HOYO's got your back to make her unique in that fact that she doesn't use elemental burst energy at all. She uses this new thing called fighting spirit. Now, what is the difference here? Now, since this is not elemental burst gauge, it's not elemental energy, can't use energy recharge, right? You don't have batteries for this. It's got its own self-battering system. Now, there's two ways to gain fighting spirit. One of them is every time you normal attack, you gain 1.5, right? The other way is when night soul points are consumed by party members, they're converted to fighting spirit. Now, if you were to try to fill this up to 100 to 200 fighting spirit to activate her elemental burst, it would take a long time. You're looking at, to get to 100, like 60 something, like 67 normal attacks to get to 100 fighting spirit. That's a lot. Go try to do 67 attacks right now and see if you can get 67 attacks off in 18 seconds. It's not going to be a thing. So what you need to do to make sure that you can gain access to the strongest burst possible is make sure that you have characters in your party that consume night soul points. I hate this. I hate this so much. Now, you don't have to get to 200. You can activate it when she gets to 15 fighting spirit, 100 fighting spirit. Out of the 200, you can consume it to unleash your elemental burst. But it consumes all of it. You're not overcapping. So what this means, to get the most benefit out of the burst, you want to get to as close to 200 as possible. And a lot of her top teams are going to be doing this because
the characters that are being released are designed specifically for this.
It's like Voltron, right? You can have Voltron, but you're like missing 2 arms or maybe missing a leg, right? You didn't get the full Voltron for your Mavuika team. What do I mean by that? Well, check this out. A lot of the damage from her rotation comes from her elemental burst. And that is due to the fact that when you elemental burst, you get this very large charge attack damage bonus, which is 1.02% at talent level 10 per fighting spirit gained. Meaning if you want to pop this thing at 100 fighting spirit, you're going to get a little over 100% damage bonus. If you're able to pop this thing at 200 fighting spirit, you're going to get a 200% damage bonus to your charge attack. Double in the same cooldown. So if you can get to 200 instead of 100 in 18 seconds, your burst is twice as powerful. So a lot of the top teams are going to be reliant on being able to gain fighting spirit via the consumption of night soul points. And wouldn't you know it? Oh my goodness, there's a new character coming out that basically has like the most basic kit. Honestly, you look at Citlali, we've covered her before, and I've made a video, I was like, broken with Mavuika. Specifically with Mavuika. And a lot of comments were, her kit seems terrible. What do you mean she's good with Mavuika? And if you look at her kit, we're not gonna go over the whole thing, go check that video out. She applies cryo right off field. She can do some cool things. She applies crowd. She does a little bit of damage. Nothing super crazy, right? Her main shtick, dude, her whole entire 16-second cooldown elemental skill is a shield. It has absolutely dog water scaling, 1,000 elemental mastery plus 3,000 flat, meaning that if you build her to 1,000 elemental mastery, you're gonna get about a 13k HP shield. It's terrible for 16 seconds. Also awful. The other thing that she's going to be doing for you is applying that cryo, so you can maybe like melt or freeze things. Melt probably in a Mavuika team. And she's also going to have, you know, pyro and hydro resistant shred. So she's like a pyro and hydro support character. But like if I wanted, you know, 20% resistance shred on a shield character, like I just put Zhongli in my team and have like a 58,000 HP barrier with 20% resistance shred and just throw someone else in there, right? So why is she so good with Mavuika? Well, I'm glad you asked, and that's because if you look at her kit here, everything she does just like gives you Night Soul points, right? Night Soul point gain, 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 Night Soul point gain. She gains and loses Night Soul points so effectively that it's kind of crazy. She's able to gain 24 Night Soul points after using her elemental skill. She's able to pop her elemental burst and gain a Night Soul points every time Ice Storm hits something, or every time she summons a spirit vessel, she gains Night Soul points. Meaning that not only is she shredding resistance for your pyro characters and your hydro characters, but she's going to be gaining and losing Night Soul points very effectively, meaning that your elemental burst for Mavuika is going to go through the skies. And so you might say, what's the big deal here? What's the big deal? The big deal is that this character basically is a 5-star being released that is the solution to the problem, and the problem being the other new 5-star that's being released. That does not sit well with me. Now, is Mavuika going to have teams that are good without Citlali? Sure, you can probably do something like Mavuika, Bennett, Farina, and Shalonin. And Shalonin is really the real reason why you'll probably be okay having not Citlali on your account and using Mavuika. And that's because Shalonin she just happens to be a fantastic character that happens to gain and lose Night Soul points. We already know how good Shalonin is. If you didn't get her the first time around, make sure you get her when she's reran. She's got the ability to do so many different things, between resistance shredding for all of your DPS and sub DPS, wearing the Cinder City set for damage percent bonuses, healing your characters, and she works very well in so many different circumstances that she's just kind of crazy. She's just kind of fantastic. The difference between someone like Shalonin and Citlali, though, is the flexibility of your teams and the flexibility of what you're allowed to do with some of your favorite characters in Genshin Impact. Now, in my opinion, this is really where my rant starts coming in here. Genshin Impact is a ridiculously casual game. There's almost no end game. They added some recently, right? Yeah, they added, you know, the crazy overworld dudes, the Notlon regional world bosses. I forget what they're called. Exotic legends or something. Local legends, right? Those are cool. Those are fun. I've done those. They're pretty all right. The Abyss is still there. You know, sometimes the enemies have like 8 jillion health, and you just don't do it for that week because you don't want to fight a worm that flies around with 9 million HP and then bury for 30. No one cares, right? They added some new stuff. It's fine, but out of all the gacha games I've ever played, it's thankfully one of the most casual experiences, unless you're trying to get through the story and play the game, and then you have to watch 500 hours of dialogue for no reason. But it's a casual game that, with this character, is going to demand that you utilize her in such a specific subset of groups of characters, Notlon characters. You'll never hit the full efficiency of using Mavuika in your team unless you're using Notlon characters. And this is where I get very upset about this being a casual game, where I can only use this character to her full potential with characters from a specific region. What's the right way to phrase this? This might be a personal thing for me, right? Because a lot of the fun I get from Genshin is like, yo, you can put these different characters together in this weird party and do some weird stuff, right? You can make the fridge teams or whatever is out there. You might make the hyper fridge, do some cool stuff, the Burgeon squads. A lot of the times it's the elemental reaction combat system that allows us to do cool things. right? The super flexible Raiden Shogun being a battery and doing off-field damage and on-field damage and maybe doing superconduct sometimes or hyper bloom or whatever. Their kits are designed in a way that they work as designed in the moment, and then they're allowed to sort of bloom and transform and be used in new ways as new characters get added to the game. That's part of, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, right? Put it down below, but part of the great part about Genshin Impact is characters just naturally get indirectly buffed or better in a lot of different ways, between new weapons coming out and new characters coming out and new teams being able to be added together. And Mavuika, I don't think she's gonna be one of those characters. And here's why. Because a lot of her power is based on this fighting spirit gauge. So you can gain a bunch of damage on her elemental burst due to the fact they're able to gain a maximum fighting spirit from utilizing not-lon characters with her. Why is that a bad thing? Well, as we go through different regions, right? 6.0 on the horizon eventually. When we get to a new region, yes, sometimes, right? We'll get a 5-star character for an old region, right? Once we got to Fontaine, right? 5-star Inazuma character, 5-star Mondstadt character, or Leeway character became pretty rare. So once we leave Not-Lon, it's going to be pretty rare for us to get any Not-Lon characters as 5 stars or even 4 stars for that matter that have the ability to utilize fighting, or not fighting spirit, but utilize the Night Soul gauge mechanic to buff up her fighting spirit gauge. Meaning that if you go out of your way to get Mavuika, she's one of your favorite characters, there's going to be a certain subsect of characters, Not-Lon region specific characters, that will ever help her gain access to the strongest form of her elemental burst. What? This doesn't mean that she's going to be bad outside of that. These are two distinct things. Please understand this. I don't mean that if you don't have a Not-Lon only party with Mavuika, she's going to be terrible. A lot of the parties that you'll probably see with Mavuika, because Shalonen's so good and thankfully can prop her up, will be like Mavuika, Farina, Shalonen, and then Bennett or something. That's probably good enough. Are you going to get the full fighting spirit gauge out of that? No, but you're going to get the damage percent bonus from Farina. You can get attack from Bennett, right? You'll get the resistance shred, a little bit of that Night Soul point for the fighting spirit stuff from Shalonen. It's pretty decent. But if you're looking to get the maximum effect, get that fighting spirit gauge, she has a mechanic where, like, unless you're utilizing Not-Lon characters, you're never going to hit 200. It's not going to happen. So, like, as soon as we leave the Not-Lon region, what characters are you going to pull for to help her out in this way? Nothing. You're just going to have to hope that whatever new supports are so busted that you don't care about only hitting 100 fighting spirit. That's going to be the breakpoint for if a new character is going to be good for Mavuika, the new character has to be so much better than a Not-Lon support character that not only whatever that Not-Lon support character does in its own kit, whether it's like Citlali where it reduces power resistance or whatever, right? The kit itself has to be more power crept than a Not-Lon support kit, not only to make up for the fact that you're losing whatever that support kit is, but make up for the fact that the Night Soul point mechanic isn't on that character. So like a Snezhnaya character isn't gonna have Night Soul points. And that's something that just kind of blows my mind. I think it's kind of dumb that you're gonna be sort of, if that's your game plan, you wanna play Motorbike Mom, you can probably play her in whatever way you want. I see the comments, I'm gonna play her with Kazuha, with Rina Bennett. I'm not gonna use any Night Soul point gain characters in my party, and it's gonna be fine. It probably will be okay. Sure. Fine. You know, and that's the other thing. If she's fine with no Not-Lon characters other than herself in a party, then why the shit is she even designed to have fighting spirit from a design perspective if she's gonna be okay in the future with new supports that come out in 6.0, 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, 5, 6, 7? Then I would say that this is a design fail. Give her a brand new mechanic, doesn't use burst energy, design fail. Because if you cannot utilize the mechanic itself, then what are we doing? Just give her elemental burst gauge energy. At that point, if you're utilizing her in a party and she works out fine, as far as damage goes, with no other Not-Lon characters to consume Night Soul points in the party, that means that the supports are so busted, you get to ignore the main mechanic of your on-field DPS It's basically turns Mavuika into a downside. It basically means your on-field damage dealer is a character that you can't even battery at all. You have to battery with 1.5 fighting spirit every 0.1 seconds. With a normal attack, you're not using Raiden Shogun with her to help battery or official to help battery or giving her energy recharge to help battery her. It's not happening. So if you want to get the most efficient form of her gauge, she's going to be married to a certain subsect. Not saying it's going to forever be Shallonen and Citlali, but she's going to be married to a certain subsect of at least having 1 to 2 Not-Lon characters in your party if this fighting spirit limit gauge mechanic is useful whatsoever from a design perspective. I think it's pretty stupid. I think it's pretty dumb in a lot of circumstances out there. And that is what I wanted to sort of get home today, is that, yeah, she's probably gonna be pretty good even without Not-Lon characters. I think it's kind of dumb either way. If she's good without Not-Lon characters, then why does she have a new mechanic? If she's not the best without Not-Lon characters, 1 to 2 specific ones in your party, then you're gonna be playing the same team basically, right? For forever. It's not like, oh, you get to try out this new toy with your favorite character ever again. No, you don't have a spot for the new toy. You don't have the spot for the new character that came out in 6.1 that buffs up fire characters. You don't have it. They have to be just infinitely better to the point where you ignore the fighting spirit mechanic that she has. I think it's dumb. I'm not sure. I'm getting super ranty. If I made sense to you, you let me know down below, right? If this makes any sense to you, my frustrations, you put it down below. I don't know. I'm out of here. Okay? I'm gone. Slap the sub. I don't know. I'm gonna go work out.